All right, if you guys are on the lives and you can hear us, let us know. I've got Facebook up and YouTube up and running. Just let us know if you can hear us, guys.
Yep. Hopefully everybody can hear me.
Yeah, sounds good on my end. So
Yeah, hopefully your headset's starting to work right, Jake.
I don't think it is. This piece is useless.
Yeah, I can hear you tapping, but it doesn't sound like tapping on a mic. All right, it looks like sound's up. I'm going to kick it over to Ben. He's going to MC tonight.
all right, guys. Tonight we're gonna have the ultimate debate that fires up every social media platform ever. We're gonna talk about fixed blades versus mechanical blades, broadheads. But before we do that, I think let's talk a little bit about what we've all been up to the last couple weeks. Has been turning everything into a big old muddy mess. But we've got out, done a little shed hunting. I think we've got 6 so far, but even this last weekend, it was quite a bit of snow on the ground, pretty hard to find. We had a fairly heavy snow after a large majority of the deer had already shed, I think, in this area. So we're going to try to get back out there this weekend, see if we can't find some more, since we had that hog hunt scheduled for VCO for this last weekend down in Texas, but they're still dealing with the effects of everything freezing up down there. The outfitter that we were going to, all their water lines froze and broke and flooded their cabins. So they're hoping to have that ready by this weekend. But instead of us taking them guys down there and having a poor experience, we decided to reschedule. But so I think we're going to go out and hit the woods again this weekend. The weather's supposed to be nice, and see if we can find some more sheds and do a little scouting for turkey season. But you been out much, Jake? I know it's shed hunting's kind of your thing, but
Yeah. I went out then last weekend, just real quick. I didn't find any. Went out this weekend. I got a side-by-side, just kind of hitting the pastures, spring draws, stuff like that, CRP, and turned up 32 sheds yesterday. I'll have a picture for them.
holy cow.
Yeah, the side-by-side definitely helps. Me and a buddy kind of just use that to hop from draw to draw and pocket to pocket. And a lot of old sheds, only found 5 new ones. But, and I went ahead and pulled all my cameras. I was coming out of a place as another couple was coming in to do the exact same thing and shed hunt. They said they were driving all the way from Colby to hunt that piece. It's that guy that had blinds up underneath my stuff. And, if they want to go ahead and hunt there, that's more power to them. I got some other places I can go. Unfortunately, I've hunted these places since I was a kid. So it's no biggie, I guess. Just move on from there, kind of hunt the surrounding areas. Deer travel, so you never know. But, yeah, so I packed all of my cameras out of there, and I'll be getting my tree stands at least. They seem pretty adamant about hunting there, so I'll just give them the pass. But I'll be posting a picture soon of those sheds.
Just casually drops that he found 32 sheds in a weekend, like it's every other weekend.
In a day. in a day.
Well, did you find most of them?
Actually.
Did you find most of them in the bedding area then?
Yeah, on south facing slopes. Yeah. Just drove basically the south edges and then down in the bottoms close to the water, and just kind of with 2 guys could easily drive on those draws and have to walk a few. We put on a lot of miles on the Ranger. It helped a lot for sure. I mean, we probably walked maybe 10 miles or so, but definitely drove probably 40 to 50, just back and forth, a lot of miles.
Yeah, I had a couple guys lined up to come shed hunting with me Saturday, but for different reasons they couldn't attend. But so it was just Carly and I. The boys were out teenager, and they didn't really. They had a couple friends over, but I tell you, man, Carly was a trooper. We covered a little over 4 miles, and we got back to the truck, and she didn't complain at all the whole time. We get back to the truck. She said, "Dad, my tootsies are cold." So, well, let's get the truck started up. Pull your boots off. Because I figured she got a little snow in her boots, but man, I pulled those things off, and they were absolutely packed in snow. Oh my God! But she just and she wanted to keep going. We got back to the house, and she dragged me out of the house for a little bit here around the house and poked around, but didn't turn nothing up. But
nice.
We're gonna get back after this weekend.
Very nice.
Sweet.
How about you, Matt? What have you been up to, other than dealing with dogs?
Yeah. I was just venting to these guys beforehand. We've got 2 German short hair pointers that, unfortunately, we live in town right now, and they've just been on a rampage of creating ways to get out of their run kennel. And oh man, it's been a few months ago they broke out and they killed the neighbor's chicken, and they just got a taste for it, and so now he just can't break it. And if you guys only knew what I've gone through to try to stop this, like, I mean, we've got hot wire down, we've got 6 foot tall chain link, they've got a decent sized run kennel. Let's see, we had to put down woven wire hog slats around the perimeter of the fence so they couldn't tunnel. And then they were actually shredding the chain link fence, the gate. They were grabbing the retention bars and busting clips and popping out and busting through fence to get out of the yard. And now just one of them's getting out. And he's more the classic looking short hair, more smaller, lighter, wiry, and very muscular. He's actually scaling the fence, and I've had to put out trail cameras on video mode to try to figure out what he's doing. And yeah, he's actually scaling the fence. So we ran a hot wire up top, and he just found a spot where we didn't have the hot wire run, and we hot wired the corners because we figured he was wedging off of the garage and the gutters and stuff, going by his muddy prints. But so we hot wired the corners, and he just went ahead and went up a vertical wall. And he's just climbing it like a ladder, very slow and methodical. And then he's up and over, and he actually broke out into the open and then broke back in to the backyard to run around for a while before breaking back out into the open and running around the neighborhood for a while. But thankfully, our neighbors are all pretty cool. Everybody seems to know our dogs now, and I get texts and calls and knocks on the door. And man, whenever we get like a text or a call from a random local number, my stomach just drops because I know the dogs are out. I mean, the terrifying part is if they killed that chicken and those neighbors are really cool about it and we'll just replace the laying hen for them. But, those people would have been in every right to potentially euthanize our dogs because they killed that chicken right in their yard. The chicken was out of the coop, thankfully, so they didn't destroy the coop, but they killed it right in those people's yard. And brought it home and sat it on the porch. It's horrible. But yeah, that's been consuming my weekends, unfortunately, and it looks like it's going to consume this weekend too, so we can run a hot wire all along the top of the fence, and it's starting to look like a prison out there.
Well, the last thing you want to do is, feel like you're punishing your dogs. But man, once they get that taste of true freedom where they can just run and be dogs,
yeah,
it's hard to break them of it.
We've got a lot of neighbors with some crazy pets. There's some people that have ducks, like as pets that roam their yards around here. And a lot of times they've been going to those people's house, and thankfully they're not trying to kill their ducks, but just imagine what would happen if they did. Or, people have their cats out and stuff, and they'll definitely kill cats. Yeah, that's what scares me, is they'll end up getting euthanized, or worse, they get run over. But it's so frustrating, man. And what are you supposed to do? Like, anybody that has short hair pointers can probably feel the pain. I mean, you have to work them so hard mentally and physically. And what do you do? Like, when they break out all week, how do you take them hunting and work them on the weekend? It's like a reward for being jerks all week. But if you don't do it, then they're just twice as bad the next week, and it's rough.
Yeah, there's a reason I moved over to the lab world.
Yeah, I mean, you can put the e-collar on them, and they recognize that they better not screw around because they can get shocked easy, but you don't want to make them correlate the e-collar with punishment, because then you take them hunting and they cower. It's rough.
Yeah, they need to move out the country.
Yeah, we need to get them some ground, but I mean, they're short hairs. They don't care, man. You could have 40 acres and they want 60. They'll never be happy with what they have. They'll always be, you know, the one that can't get out right now, he's the hunter, and he'll always be testing the border, always wanting more and more and more. When I take them out, quote unquote, shed hunting or working on minerals like the weekend before, I mean, you literally have to keep your eyes on them because they're always checking to see if you're watching, and they're almost always 40 yards away, and they're always pressing that 40-yard boundary. And if you take your eyes off them and they're at 40 yards, they're gone. It's such a pain. But yeah. Anyway, that's what I've been up to, hoping to get out and get some more trail cameras and work the dogs this next weekend, hopefully. It's supposed to be really nice in Nebraska, so maybe even get the family out to shed hunt, just walk around.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get off into the hot topic, I guess. I guess we'll start with you, Jake. Let's go with your preferred broadhead.
Okay. Yeah, as I've mentioned in videos past, if anybody's been watching, I shoot 100 grain, which I always have, Nap Spitfires. Just been using those probably for the last maybe 6 or 7 years, 6 years probably. I had an old football coach and one of my first bow tech guys that really taught me how to do stuff. That's what he shot, and he kind of gave me a pack of those and killed my first couple deer with them. Really good blood trails, and kind of stuck with them. I journeyed before that into, some fixed blades. My first broadhead was a fixed blade, Walmart special of some sort. Killed deer with that as well. But first true taste of a mechanical was a Rage. Bad luck with that for some reason. I've heard good lucks, with those types. I mean, with that brand in particular. But I found Nap and Spitfire and stuck with it for these years. And I haven't really had anything bad to say about it. My shot placement's the only thing that's kept me from killing a deer last year.
But what's your bow setup that you shoot with those broadheads, like your poundage and arrow weight?
Well, I believe my poundage was, I got 70-pound limbs. I tested it there at Mass, and for some reason it said 63, and it's maxed all the way out. So I felt kind of like a giant wuss, as put it in good terms. But I'm pretty sure it's up there farther than that. But I guess not. But I'm shooting a 350 spine from Carbon Express, which their numbers are kind of different, but it's like a 65-pound spine basically is in terms. Nothing special because I haven't messed with any weight forward or anything like that, but 70-pound Matthews with the 100 grain up front. And looking to tinker with that for sure, but that's what I've always shot.
How about you, Matt? What are you shooting right now?
This last season was my first season using the Iron Will fixed heads. Prior, I would say, I don't even know the exact model. I was shooting Cabela's. They were replaceable blades, but they were fixed blades. It was like a 3-blade, like razors, triangle razors. And it was like 100 grain head. Very small and vented basically. And I shot that. I know in 2018 I shot that when I killed my first deer with the bow, that buck, and had great results. But it was a slam dunk shot. Just slightly quartered away on my strong side, right through the armpit and out the front of the chest, basically, just in front of the other shoulder. Actually caught all 4 chambers of the heart when I took it apart. But so that was a really good first experience. And then the next year, I believe, I was trying to think of this today. I'm pretty sure in 2019 I shot those same style of heads, but Cabela's discontinued them. So, and then this year I moved up and was shooting the iron will. Like I said, I went with the wide 150s to get a larger cutting surface. And
it's our special guest.
Went with the bleeder the bleeders as well on it, because that's how they made them. And yeah, I was pretty happy with it. Had really good results with it on the one buck I took this year at the bow. Yeah, we can get more into detail when we talk about the heads, but
right.
Joanna's going to say good night, guys.
Good night, Joanna.
Night, Joe.
Good night, world. What do you say? Good night. Be good, Snippet. Okay, we're back.
I as well am shooting a 150 grain iron will head. I'm not shooting the wides. I'm shooting the inch and an eighth on their standard heads, Matt. You know?
I think so. I didn't look it up.
I think that's what they are, but it's got the bleeder blades on it as well. That's my first year shooting those, and I have shot just about every other type of head out there, from your G5 Montex, quite a few different mechanicals, some real popular ones that I've shot is Grim Reaper. I have never shot a Rage, and I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to get into why I don't on here, but if anybody's curious, I'd be happy to tell you. There's another one that a real good friend of mine shoots them and has had tremendous luck with them, and that's the Battle Axe heads. It's kind of a hybrid head, but I spent a lot of time with the Grim Reapers, and I've shot every one of their models they have, and I've had varying experiences with them. And like I said, we'll get into that kind of as we go along. I've shot the dead meat broadheads that come out here, I think 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily a fan of those. But with my bow setup, I've kind of switched, focusing more on the fixed blades, and I think that's probably the direction I'm going to keep heading, just because of the setup I'm shooting. It really played a lot into my decision on that. And then with the experiences I've had with them this last year. And but yeah, we'll get more into the details on that. So that's what we're all shooting this year anyway. So you've all shot fixed blade broadheads, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Like you've shot some as well, Jake?
Yeah.
So you've had experience with both. Matt, you've pretty much been all fixed blade, correct?
Yeah, I have a pile of mechanicals and some other fixed blades that I've dinked around with, but I've never hunted with mechanical. And I could tell you why now. I was talking with Jake about this before we came on. The reason I had never shot mechanical to start with is I was pulling a very low poundage. I'm probably the bow that I had set up for me when I was green and didn't know what I was doing, and unfortunately it doesn't seem like those guys really cared when they were setting me up, was a 28-inch-ish axle to axle, and it was set up at like a 28-inch draw. And I'm 6'2" with like a 74-inch wingspan, so anybody that's quick with math would know that bow did not fit me very well. But I didn't have a lot of musculature. I would say I wasn't very strong, to be honest, and certainly wasn't bow drawing strong. So I was probably struggling to shoot 53, 50, right in that range, especially in the cold. That's probably where my bow was set at, with a shorter draw length. And I just knew I didn't have a ton of momentum and pop to it. And so, from my understanding at that time, was that fixed blades probably weren't a great option because I was going to lose even more of that energy entering with the fixed blades opening, and probably would struggle to get them to penetrate very deep and deploy fully.
You mean a mechanical, right?
Yes, sorry, mechanical. That totally changes the dynamic here. But the mechanicals. So I just never bothered with them. I got like I said, a very small sized 3-blade replaceable blade fixed head that was vented. It was almost like a field point. It seemed like it didn't have a huge cutting diameter. It had a lot of cut because it had 3 blades on it, and it worked for me. It flew like my field points. Like I said, I was very green on like bow tuning and these other aspects that play a huge role in shooting fixed blades, which we'll get more into. But the reason I started with fixed blades is because I was not strong enough to pull a bow. I wanted to make sure that I got decent penetration as much as I could with the setup that I had at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. I mean, like we've said time and time again, your choice of broadhead should fit, in my opinion. Now, sidebar here. I want everybody to understand that this is our opinions. None of us here are experts.
None of us are. Yeah.
we're passing along what we've learned through trial and error. We've learned through our own mistakes, and there's no right setup. I will say that I don't care what anybody says. There's no perfect setup. It all depends on what you're shooting, what you're confident with, and ultimately shot placement is key.
Yeah.
So
nobody's here is an engineer by any means.
No.
None of us, like, I don't understand honestly the grades of steel, rock hardness, and all that stuff. I just take it as the people that understand when they put out the information that they know what they're talking about. I would say that, I work in medical. Ben, you're kind of in education and skilled in welding, retired Army vet. Jake is building large farm implements and augers and all that stuff. So all of our education and careers have nothing to do with engineering, all these physics and all these things. I'm probably more of the geeked out nerd on this stuff of the three of us, I would say. I find it really fascinating, and I consume a lot of content from all over the place. I don't take anybody's word as gospel, just between textbooks and all different kinds of content, from Ranch Fairy in the heavy arrow setup to Elk Shape with their lighter arrow setups, and preference toward a fixed blade or a mechanical, all around, whatever. Like, I consume it all and try to get it to play into what works perfect for you. And I definitely tinker around probably the most with bow tuning and arrow tuning, and I shot like 60 different shafts last year at different spines and different weights, like just a crazy amount of stuff. That doesn't mean that I'm an expert in it. It means like I've put the time in to try to understand what's going on. There's definitely experts out there for y'all to find information from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in saying that, I just want everybody to take what you can from our experiences and apply them to your own setup. So let's jump forward here to Jake. Like I said, you have experience with both fixed blade and mechanical. And I'll go out and say, not every mechanical is the same. There is a huge amount of mechanical broadheads out there, and they all operate differently. Some of them have some similarities, but every single one of those operates different. They're made with different materials. Simple things like your blade thickness makes a huge difference. And how they deploy, they're going to soak up different amounts of energy from your shot.
Mm-hmm.
The shot angle plays a role in it. So I have had arrows run right down the side of a deer where take that same shot at another deer and it just cuts right through everything. So there's a lot that goes into there's a lot more that goes into it than just the broadhead itself. So, situations, the equipment you're shooting, the arrow plays a difference in it. So, we can literally go on with this for days.
Mm-hmm.
But so in your experience, Jake, like I said, you're still shooting mechanicals.
Yeah.
Why is it, kind of the general theme nowadays is fixed blades is the way to go. Why, in your opinion, do you stick with the mechanicals?
Well, honestly, it's just what I feel comfortable with the most. Like I said, I've shot them for 7 years, and I've had good luck. Proper shots, I've never lost a deer with them just because of the entry-exit wound. The blood trails are amazing on proper shots. And it all boils down to shot placement for sure. I was shooting fixed blades and kind of getting a lot of shooting kind of far distances when I was younger because I was kind of competitive, 3D here and there around the area. And I just got like a little bit of travel, what I felt out of those, but that was personal. That's just what I felt. Whereas the mechanicals, I got more true flight, but now I'm thinking about switching, back and forth, maybe try the iron wheels here, like you guys are. I'm not specifically sold on Spitfires, naps by no means, but that's just what I'm 100% comfortable with. Last year it should have been a done deal. Shot placement was absolutely horrid. Didn't get good penetration. You're not going to straight into the shoulder high like that. So that was just on me. But I just really comfortable with my mechanicals. I have tested Rage when I was probably 7 years ago before I switched to the Spitfires. Had horrible luck with them deploying. Personal opinion there as well. But yeah, I lost a deer with a Rage that looked to have been dead shot to me, and it just arrow went clean pass through, and it was stuck closed, like completely closed, and that was with that Rage. But other than that, for mechanicals, I read stories like, it's probably maybe 1 out of 100, that might not deploy or might not work right, but it's that one. That's why people switch to the fix, because it's pretty foolproof. You don't have any moving mechanisms, moving parts. Something can't go wrong if you have a perfect shot, unlike a mechanical. But yeah, that's my opinion, and I'll probably stay with mechanicals unless I can get some iron wheels. I'm going to give those a try. Like I said, the heavy arrow setup, just going to tinker around. It's just hard not having a bow shop and tinker around with all that stuff. I wish I lived closer to Matt to be able to do that real quick, but yeah.
For the guys that are on, hold on a second. So if you guys are on YouTube or Facebook, feel free to leave questions, comments, experiences. If you're watching this later or listening to the podcast later on, you can go back to this live feed, and on Facebook here, Ronald Kulas, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your last name, sir, but he is on, and he actually posted a link to his website and articles. And when I talked about there are experts out there, there's an expert. If you guys want to read his opinion, he left a comment earlier today that he's got over 500 heads in his shop, and he's shot and tested them all. And this guy knows what he's talking about. So if you're looking for an expert opinion versus 3 average Joes just talking about our experiences, you can catch that later. I'll make sure to share that link on any of the posts we put up about the podcast or anything later, so that you have that resource for one expert's opinion on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And do your research, folks. I mean, there's a wealth of knowledge out there. And like I said, take from it what's going to work for you. So let's go on to you, Matt. Like, you've pretty much been fixed blade broadhead. So Obviously, it's what you're confident in. It's what's worked for you. What drawbacks do you see from using a fixed blade broadhead?
Yeah, perfect lead in. I'm going to go to full screen so I can show this to you guys here.
Oh, he's got slides for his.
No.
He's got pictures, so.
I've got toys.
Oh.
The biggest drawback, and this was
That's a
shared
kill
by a gentleman earlier today as well. Let me find his name real quick. Ernie West made the comment earlier on our poll that basically talks about in the PC version that if you're going to shoot fixed blades, especially larger diameter, you better tune your bow. There's no being lazy. There's no not knowing what you're doing with tuning your bow. You're not going to get away with anything. You certainly will notice if you go versus, your field point, you've got one set of wings correcting that arrow. So if your bow is just a little out of tune or the arrow comes out a little crooked, whatever, that rear set of wings, fletchings, is going to correct that arrow real fast. If you watch it in slow motion, it's going to straighten it out, and it might be a little off of like center shot, but you're going to be able to sight your bow to match how your arrow's coming off. You can get away with that if you're still using fixed blades, because you can just see how that profile of that fixed blade is going to shoot a lot closer to a field point. It's not a big wing out front.
Mechanical.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just so fixed blade that I don't even want to admit that these things exist. No, I'm just kidding. But so when I wasn't real good at tuning the bow, I did have an understanding of this concept, but I still didn't feel like mechanicals were good for that very low poundage. So this is actually my first fixed blade right here, and you can see how similar it actually is to a field point, and the three blades are vented, so it's not as much of a profile out front. It's obviously more than a mechanical, but it's not insane, and it was going to allow still the fletchings to basically steer the arrow more than anything. Versus this last year, that's an iron wheel wide series with bleeders, and that bad boy is a wing out front. So now you've got an arrow that if your bow's not tuned well, let's say even your shafts aren't right, anything like that, your arrow doesn't come off clean, you've got a wing out front and a wing in the back, and so they're going to fight each other to correct that arrow, and there's a good chance that that arrow is going to be off target, and you're really going to notice it when you back out to 40, 50, 60 yards, that it might fly with your field point at 20 or close enough, but you back out to 60 and now you see you got like a 6-inch drift because the arrow is not coming out clean, versus what your field point was doing, where the back fletchings were correcting the arrow and cleaning it up for you. So you really, if you're going to shoot a large diameter fixed blade like this, and now they actually have a solid version, like I've got some other iron wheels here, this is their smaller profile solid head, so that is definitely a wing out front that's going to affect flight. And they've also got that same size in the vented version, but now they do make this in a solid, and we can talk about that why in a little bit. But the key point was, the biggest con with shooting fixed blades, in my opinion, from experience and from also listening and consuming content, is that you just have to have a tuned bow. You have to know what you're doing with tuning your bow, or you have to have a bow shop that's willing to spend time fine tuning your bow, that it's not just good enough, just put a mechanical on there and it's good enough. You need somebody that's really passionate about it and wants to fine tune that thing with you, so that you can. I bear shaft tune, and I spent all summer after I got that new VXR bear shaft tuning, finding the perfect spine, perfect arrow for what I wanted, and not adjusting the draw length or weight after that. Just, I was dialed in on that, and then I started going through shafts until I could get a bullet hole with the perfectly tuned bow, and then started building arrows out. And I showed some pictures last year. I actually had those wide series flying with field points at 80 yards, and it's a sweet feeling. It's just it's a lot of work, or time at the bow shop with somebody that wants to help you and you can't shortcut it for sure.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that too. The human component to that. When you shoot, especially the wide series, if you shoot a broadhead that's got a fixed blade 1.5 wide cut broadhead on the front, especially a 2-blade, if your form isn't perfect, especially in a hunting situation, you're going to get a flyer and you're not going to know where it's going. Even within 30 yards, I've seen a shot be 4 or 5 inches off, and that's the difference between a clean hit or a wounded deer. So it requires a little bit more dedication as an archer to shoot a fixed blade broadhead, in my opinion. There are some broadheads that, fixed blade broadheads that do shoot, they're a little more forgiving. One of my shot that I had really good luck with that didn't require a lot of tuning, what was that? It's a 4-blade tooth of the arrow. It's just a solid 1-piece broadhead, but it had a very, very small cutting diameter, but it had 4 blades, so you got a pretty nice wound channel still. That thing just shot great no matter what I did with my setup. I even intentionally would change tweak my setup a little bit out of tune just to see how forgiving it was, and it would always shoot with my field points. But like Matt was saying, it's just vitally important that your bow is tuned for your broadhead, so your broadheads and your field points are hitting the same spot, and it's something you want to. And I verify that throughout the season. We went to that bear hunt in North Carolina, and my equipment just got the hell beat out of it. And as soon as I come home, I pulled out target, and I was about 4 inches off from where my field points were hitting. And all it was, my rest got bumped just a little bit.
Yeah.
Literally like a 1/16 of an inch made all the difference.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories about guys that actually take one with them. Like if you're going on, it's probably good to be familiar with at least one mechanical that you're comfortable with, especially if you're going on trips like that. I've heard stories of guys that they get there and something happened, Murphy's Law, something happened, and they get there and their bow's just not dialed in the same. It's shooting a little different, and they fiddle with it, and they just can't get it tuned right again. And usually people are going on destination hunts. You're looking at Western game, and you're taking a little bit further shots than us tree stand folks. And so they get there and they just can't tune it in. They don't feel comfortable taking a 60-yard shot or whatever, and they'll put a field point on there or a mechanical on there, and boom, they can get it where they want it, and it's not flying off on them, and they'll hunt with it as their backup option in that situation. So probably a good idea to at least be familiar with one that you like.
Yeah, for sure.
One problem that I would say, Ronald commented here that he talks a lot about boosting FOC. He's part of the Ashby 100. So if you guys aren't familiar with Ashby studies, or if you want the Ashby for Dummies guide or whatever, the quick version of it, check out some Ranch Fairy videos. He talks a lot about the Ashby information, but it's basically high FOC for higher momentum and penetration, mostly on low poundage or traditional type shooting. And if you want to get to high FOC, that's honestly pretty difficult to do with mechanicals. If you guys are familiar with mechanicals, you got like 100 grain, 125 grain, maybe 150 grain. You're not going to see 250 grain heads. And obviously you can make up for that with inserts, but I just don't know, what kind of testing say. I don't want to just use this one and say that this is the one, but mechanicals, I don't know how much they're actually tested with, say, a 300 grain insert and 450 grains of arrow behind it going into something. Are those blades, is that ferrule, is it built to withstand 500 grains of weight behind it? Is it going to snap here at your insert? Are the blade's going to break as they try to deploy because it's hitting so much harder. You got this driving weight right behind the broadhead. Typically, your broadhead is probably your heaviest part of the arrow, and it's out front. Even in those high FOC, you're shooting a heavier head with a decent amount of insert behind it, but probably keeping this heavier than the insert and the arrow behind it still. But you can't do that. From my knowledge with mechanicals, I don't know too many mechanicals that go up into the 200, 250, 300 grain range.
Mm-hmm.
But he was talking about the FOC mainly because, if you have a high FOC, that instead of the weight behind in the back pushing the arrow, you're getting more and more of the weight in the front of center weight. So that weight is pulling the arrow along. And even with that fixed blade out front, as it's pulling the arrow along, now the fletchings can engage more and just really dial it in fast if your bow's out of tune, which hopefully if you're nerding out about it this much that you put the time in to tune your bow. Like, that's the easiest answer. Tune your bow and then tune an arrow to your bow and then go kill something.
All right, so we've heard Matt's thoughts on the drawbacks to a fixed blade. Let's hear your opinion, Jake, on the drawbacks to a mechanical.
Yeah, like I had mentioned before, I've heard horror stories of non-deploying arrows, which I had one at one point. Non-deploying broadheads, I should say. I'd say that's the number one fear, and then angle of shot placement, probably. I've seen numerous tests, shooting through plywood at different angles and stuff, and they tend to have a little bit more more deflection to them. It just depends on the brand as well with that, or model style. That being one, and then I would say, like Matt said, he was worried about shooting 45 pounds or 52. Sorry, Matt, that's a little low for you. 52 pounds, not being able to get good penetration or a clean pass through with that. I would probably agree with that as well. When I shot fixed blades, I was shooting down in the 50s as well, is why I had fixed blades. When I got up to the 70-pound limbs, I had switched to mechanicals, and I haven't changed it since then, just because I know with the right shot placement or even a little bit of air, I have enough poundage behind there to blow her through. And my deer last year would be a good example on that. I 30-yard shot with that Spitfire right through both shoulder blades. Heart shot was pretty devastating. Blood trail. I know it was a low, pretty poor shot, and I kind of doubted it. And I was walking back to the pickup and stumbled upon the deer. As I was going to go get my buddies and help me, I had kind of walked in that sort of direction, and he didn't lay 15 yards on the other side from where I had shot. And I just didn't ever see it go down because my Luminok went clean through it. And that, to me, sold me into this next year of shooting my Spitfires again. And then maybe into this next year here, I might do the same if I can't, like you said, put in the proper time to get the tuning down on my bow, which I know I probably have slight issues, right now. If I can make it back up to mats, we can get them things dialed back in. But, I can do some simple things here, of course, paper tune and stuff like that. But definitely key to have a good bow shop or a good bow tech to be able to tune in for them fixed blades. And that is why I shoot a mechanical, just because it's a little more field point-like, and just based off the last 7 years of experience with blood trails. So,
all right, for me personally, like I said, they both have their advantages, and there's definitely advantages to shooting a mechanical. Like I said, they're a lot more forgiving. You do tend to get quite a considerably larger wound channel, just because you're shooting a much larger cutting diameter. but for the drawbacks on the mechanical, for me personally, I've had a lot of failures, not necessarily deploying, but I've had blades break off. I've had ferrules break. And that's just, for me, that's unacceptable. And I've, like I said, probably the biggest one for me though is not getting a complete pass through. As I get a little older, the last few years, I've had to turn down the poundage on my bow, and I shot Grim Reapers pretty much. I mean, that was my go-to. That's the one I trusted the most. A lot of guys local here shoot them and just have fantastic luck with them, as well did I. I mean, every deer I shot with one, I literally watched it drop. But there was one time I shot one, he went up over a hill, and my heart sank because I only had about 8 inches of penetration in him, and it was a perfect shot. There was no shoulder blade; it was just rib cage, and I didn't get a pass through. So that's when I switched over to a fixed blade, and that pass through for me is probably one of the most important aspects of shooting a fixed blade, because for us guys, we all hunt out of tree stands for the most part. So when you shoot a deer, your animal's coming in a little higher, just above the middle of the body, and it comes out in the lower third. So as that body cavity fills up with blood, it's going to pour out faster, so you get a blood trail a lot sooner. Where that mechanical has an advantage is you've just got such a larger wound channel. If you're higher in the body cavity, you're not hitting as much of the vital part of the animal, so you're going to do more damage. The deer's going to die sooner, faster. But that's where it all comes back to shot placement is key. But shooting the fixed blade, those things are so tough. I mean, you shoot them in the rocks and take it over to the sandpaper, sharpen it up, and put it back in your quiver. They're just brutally strong, and just they crush bone. I had a really, really poor experience with a hybrid head, and that's kind of a side topic here is the hybrid heads. There's 2 different ones that I tried out. One was the battle axe, and I shot a deer, and one half of the blade was in the deer when I gutted it out. The other half was, the ferrule busted on me when it hit the dirt after it come through. So it was a disposable broadhead. But the fact that it broke inside the deer on a pass-through shot was unacceptable. The second deer I shot this year with a hybrid head, it was a VIP head, and I had a lot of really good reviews on it, and I shot a deer and I hit her leg, I hit right on her femur, and I could see the insert on the sticking out of her as she ran away, and that deer is still alive the deer is still alive to this day. And it made me absolutely sick and just disgusted that I did that to that deer. And I'm sitting here and I have to watch her every night as she comes out in the food plot. And I know without a shadow of doubt, if I'd have been shooting the iron will head on her, I'd have killed her. So for me personally, I don't think I'll ever shoot a mechanical head again. It's just, I'm not confident in a mechanical broadhead. I've had, if there's anything mechanical, there's a chance for failure. So I'm taking that out of the equation, and that's just my personal preference. That's how if I'm not confident in shooting, I'm not going to shoot it no more. So confidence, shot placement, that's kind of where I stand on it.
Right on.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got
Go ahead.
We got any new comments on there, Matt?
Yeah, Ronald did say that there are some mechanicals. I guess the Sever Robusto must be a pretty heavy mechanical if you're really wanting to shoot mechanicals.
I think that's a newer one. I've seen posts about it. It looks pretty dirty, honestly.
Yeah.
I've seen those.
And then he was talking about, you know, the inserts and stuff to add the weight. And then he just kind of summarized basically what we were saying too, like shot placement, structural integrity, and sharpness. So, you know, even on a fixed blade, we talked before, we're trying not to use names of products, but we talked before about they're all not created equal either. There are really high quality mechanicals and they're lesser quality mechanicals. There are really high quality fixed blades and there's lesser quality fixed blades. And you got to know those type of things and what your risk is if you're going lesser quality. My big thing, like you said, sharp shot placement. Obviously, everybody's going to say you can kill anything with good shot placement. You could go out with the field point and kill a deer with perfect shot placement. That first buck I killed in 2018 where he was slightly quartered away at 17 yards, and I'm in an elevated position and I'm able to tuck it right in the backside of his front shoulder in a, you know, perfect shot. You could have killed him with anything, but that doesn't always happen. And that's where it becomes where we start talking about this stuff. Honestly, that's where I get sold on fixed blades. And you'll hear a guy like Ranch Fairy talk, Troy Fowler, he'll talk all the time about plan B. What do you do when you're a little excited, you know, and you pull your shot because you try to look quick and you're just a little bit off where you needed to be, or you just barely overestimate or underestimate the yardage, especially overestimate, so you hit them a little high. Is your setup gonna buy you some grace for that moment of buck fever, anything like that? And that's what I'm driven by. Is I don't plan for plan B. I don't plan to take plan B, but if it does happen, I want to know that I'm gonna be safe. And honestly, the buck I killed this year with the bow is a perfect example. I shot him back, you know, and people that saw the recovery video had a heyday with me because I shot him in the butt, you know, and I shouldn't be shooting a bow if I can't shoot him not in the butt. And I shot him about 4 inches back of where I wanted to be because that rushed state, what happened, you can watch the video where I explain what happened. But he was hard quartering away. He's at 5 yards. I'm not very high in this small tree, so I'm not a huge angle down into him. And he's hard quartering away, and his front shoulder had already started to go through the hole behind the brush. So I basically just had the rear 2/3 of the deer to maybe rear half of the deer. But I knew that my heavy arrow, higher FOC, broadhead, I could get some serious penetration. I knew I could at least get to his liver or vitals through his diaphragm, etc. And like I said, I probably hit maybe 4 inches straight back of where I ideally wanted to hit him. But I hit him, and I actually got dang near pass through, apparently. When I recovered him, we did find the exit wound. So I hit him in the left rear quarter-ish and exited the right front quarter at the shoulder. And I happened to clip his femoral artery, which was a godsend because he died quickly. But I dead shot the liver, diaphragm, right lung, just missed clipping the heart as it came out the right front shoulder. And I had utmost confidence in my arrow setup to take that shot. I do wish it was just a touch forward. I would have drilled it right into his heart from a hard quartering away shot, but I couldn't. Honestly, I don't think I could have done that with the fixed blade or a mechanical. That's a long way to go, and I still don't shoot. I'm not a He-Man. I was shooting maybe 60 pounds this last year because it was really comfortable. Like I could really comfortably shoot 60 pounds. So that's where I was this last year. But I just knew with that setup I could take that shot, and it saved me and got me a potential Pope and Young buck, you know, at 5 yards. The other comment that Ronald made was the sharpness. And these guys know I showed them a video just days before that hunt. I had been on several hunts early season, and I'd taken out that number 1 arrow several times but never shot it. But I still took the time to sharpen it, which ironically, since Ron is contributing so much, I'll plug his product. Ron has the Stay Sharp products, and Ben and I happen to actually own his Stay Sharp products, and it's the easiest way to sharpen a broadhead. It's dummy proof. And so I had that thing, and I spent almost 2 hours sharpening this one head, and it was just crystal clear. And the very next hunt I went out with it, the next day I went hunting. It was the second hunt for the day, but the very next day of hunting, I used that arrow, and there's no doubt that the sharpness played a role as well. You've got to show that animal respect and put that time into that kind of stuff, like small things. Like, yes, you can probably get a good wound with a not very sharp broadhead, but you might be able to get, I passed through like 4 feet of deer to get an exit because it was that sharp all the way through, and happened to not really catch any bone until we got to the front shoulder. But those things just play a huge role. You got to do it. You got to tune your bow. You got to know you've got a tuned arrow. You're going to shoot well. And you've got sharp heads. Even if you shoot mechanicals, if you've been taking it in and out of your quiver, replace those blades. It's cheap and easy. Have the sharpest thing you can possibly have. Have the most lethal setup you can possibly have every single time you go into the woods. That's the only way you're showing respect to the game that you're hunting. Whether you're mechanical or fixed, it doesn't matter. Like, you've got to go through those things. I'm off my soapbox.
No, I 100% agree with all that. I think the ability to sharpen your blades, for me personally, is a huge benefit to shooting, a higher end fixed blade broadhead. The iron wheels that we shoot, they're not necessarily a cheap head. They're not the most expensive, but they are an investment. But it's an investment that's going to last you a long time, as long as you don't lose the arrow. I'm going to say it, iron wheel are fantastic heads. They've got a lifetime warranty on them. They're very well manufactured with high quality components. But the ability to sharpen them and they stay sharp is a huge, huge, huge plus for me anyway. I find that as a huge benefit.
Yeah. Just the deer. Just think if you cut yourself with a sharp versus dull knife, like Terry just said, a dull blade bleeds less. Sharp blades bleed more. But just think about the feeling. Like, if you cut yourself with a dull knife, it's usually a lot of pressure and you really feel it. If you're working with a really sharp knife, like when I was sharpening that iron wheel head with the Stay Sharp guide, I actually cut myself pretty good, and you don't feel it. You just see blood. So think about that for the game animal. There's plenty of videos where you see the arrows zip right through them and they don't react. You don't see the huge donkey kick that you see with the gunshot or something like that. So it's, some, you might theorize that maybe they don't feel quite as much pain when that super sharp arrow just zips right through them. And they expire, obviously. They feel that they're dying and running out of blood, etc. But maybe they don't feel that intense pain of a dull blade ripping into them. So just another way to think about it as being respectful to the game. Let's see, other comments. Let's see. Not too much on there. Terry does mention, Jake and I's stepdad, that there are states where you can't shoot big game with mechanicals. So you need to know your laws, where you're at, etc. All three of us, there's no law against it, but all three of us are primarily whitetail tree stand zones. So primarily 20, 30 yard shots. So yeah, man.
But
that's pretty much all I have. Just be confident in what you're shooting, make sure it's sharp, and then, get what you feel is the best quality head that you can afford. I will never buy another disposable broadhead. You know, I don't know. If I grab a blade and it bends, that's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think you're doing a disservice to the animal. You're risking breaking the blade, or just.
Yeah, I agree, but yeah, we'll see if I make the switch. I don't know.
I'll say quick, a big con for the fixed blades is, like Ben said, moolah. So
yeah,
that buck that I shot with the 4-footed deer pass through, I didn't get full pass through. Apparently, the fletchings were hung up inside, and I didn't blood trail him. There's a lot of things I did wrong. I saw where he went down, so when I got out of the tree, I went to where he went down. I didn't blood trail him. I thought the arrow was inside of him, honestly. And when I field dressed him and didn't find an arrow, I was like, oh, crap. It's dark. It's raining ice. We got to leave. I'm not going to be able to go back and follow the blood trail. We got to get out of there. So I went back a few nights later to try to find it. It had snowed and all this other blah, blah, blah. And obviously blood trail was gone. So we looked around in the dark, and I was able to find the Luminoc. And I go from like demoralized to super excited, go over there, grab it, and it's just the back half of the arrow. Like the business end is gone. That sucks. Like you buy a lifetime warranty broadhead that you know it's A2 steel. From what I understand, it's insanely tough and keeping its edge. Ronald did mention, check out Lusk Archery. He does amazing durability testing on YouTube, and he shot these things into like concrete blocks and through metal and everything else, and they don't lose their edge. They don't bend the tip or nothing, and you just sharpen them back up and they're good to go. So I mean, it's potentially a lifetime head unless you lose it. My first one, I freaking lost it. So there's a huge con to it.
Something you touched on earlier, Matt, that I kind of want to bring back up was the vented heads. You and I both shot them. You and I both shot them this year. I've never shot one until this year. Matt and I kind of swapped some heads, and that way we could each try them out, and that's maybe an idea for you. Find a couple of your buddies that are interested in shooting them and buy a set, go in on them together, and we each get 2 or 3 and test them out. But anyhow, Matt and I swapped a couple of heads around, and I got one of the wide vented broadheads, and I did notice that it does create a little bit of noise. Whether it affects the deer or not, that's debatable. However, I'm shooting a low poundage bow with a really heavy arrow, and so my arrow doesn't travel as fast. So
yeah,
I've had deer duck arrows before. Them things are like ninjas sometimes. They're so fast. They are so fast. I can't remember what it is, but it's it's fractions of a second that a deer can drop.
Yeah, it's like 0.3.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy fast. I've seen a deer dodge an arrow. Actually, twice last year I seen it.
Especially if they have their head down feeding, they drop.
Yeah, because they're.
Or when you stop them.
Or when you stop them.
Stupid. Yeah.
Oh, man.
I'm gonna make sure to bring that up every chance I can, Jake.
Yeah.
I mean, if they don't hear you the first time, just scream at them.
Just grunt a little louder. Trust me, I tried.
5 yards.
But the vented heads can create a little bit of noise, so maybe keep that in mind. Have that be part of your equation.
Yeah.
When you go to select your broadheads.
It obviously didn't affect the deer this year at 5 yards, but that is something that we talked about preseason. And I do believe that's why they came out with the solid wides. As the whitetail guys that wanted the wides, they wanted bigger blood trails and a bigger cut with the bleeders and the wider blade. But they do whistle a little. And if you're following, like the Ashby type theories, the Ranch Fairy type theories with the high FOC heavy arrows, you do lose feet per second, obviously. What you gain is a quieter bow. Like, I shoot a VXR and it's quiet to begin with. You do all this dressing up of it to quiet some more, and then you put a heavy arrow on there and it is so quiet. But then you slow your arrow down and you put a head on there that kind of whistles as it flies. It's really hard. Like, I've heard the Iron Wheels engineers speak on it. Like, they did some audio testing and some different stuff, and there's no like equivocal opinion on it, I guess, like factual. But the thought is that it really won't matter. By the time they hear it, it's piercing them, because it's not like a screaming whistle. The string snap is way louder than the whistle of the arrow. But like Ben and I did, we kind of stood down range a little bit, and you could hear it whistling by, going toward the target, just a little bit compared to other stuff. It's not like glaring, but that's certainly why they switched and built a solid this year. But the solid, you're going to lose. You're going to have to make sure you're going to be dang sure that you're tuned. If you're putting a solid wide blade out there, you're just asking for the wind and the poor tuning of the arrow to come glaring. But
you will have limitations too, like you just brought up with the wind. You may be confident out to 40 yards, but if you've got a hard crosswind, you better know how your equipment's going to react to it. Go out and practice, and but that's where that dedication comes into shooting a fixed blade broadhead. If you have the opportunity to go out and shoot in a 20-mile-an-hour crosswind, go do it, just so you know how your equipment's going to react to it.
Yeah, here's some really good information. Ronald said that you can actually field test or trial high-end expensive heads by renting them from a company called Broadhead Connection. Get connected, be confident, and you can return them after testing. Then I'm assuming that doesn't mean you can shoot them through steel and concrete. It just, you can go out and shoot them at foam targets and see how they fly, how you like them. So that's really cool that you can actually test out a variety that way, by renting them on Broadhead Connection. Yeah. Get connected, be confident. We'll share that link when we post this video and the podcast as well.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I guess my closing point, I'll go first, would be that Amber shared this, Amber Dubs from here in Nebraska, and she nailed it right on the head. And I think we're probably all going to say this to some degree, but the key is to be confident in what your setup is. Don't just put it on there because your buddy uses it and you have no idea how it's going to work for you. Test stuff, trial stuff, jump into the deep end and get addicted to this archery thing. It's, number one, it's fun. There's nothing more rewarding than like hitting bullseye, and like you guys all know that feeling. And you can just keep doing that work to where, whatever you choose, you're hitting bullseye. You know that when you do your process, you're going to be good. So when you go to the tree, you have utmost confidence. Like I said, that shot I took on the whitetail this year, yes, I missed by about 4 inches back, but I had the utmost confidence in what that arrow and setup was capable of. Being fully sharpened and high FOC, all these things, like I knew I could take that shot and it would kill. I missed a little because I'm human, but I had some grace and I was able to take him anyway. But that's the key. Be confident in what you have. Do your own research, do your own testing, find what fits you and your style, whatever you're hunting, and just keep working on it till you're so confident in it that you can go out there and not have to worry, or when you're in the field, if it's going to be enough. Just, you need to be confident so it's not in your mind at that key moment.
Yeah.
Yep, I'd agree. Nailed it on the head.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was saying. That the whole way, that's basically the reason I stick with what I'm shooting right now, is just because of confidence. With proper shots is a good asterisk on that. But yeah, and it's when the non-perfect scenarios come in, like Ranch Fairy talks about, where angle 2, you get a little excited or whatever, and you shoot it high in the shoulder, such as I did, and maybe I different outcome if I had a different broadhead. You never know on that situation, but you could only think that fixed blade is going to give a little more pass through on shoulder shots and things like that. But confidence and just definitely shoot your bows and tune in. Something I need to be better at doing is Matt is kind of taking control, like that. I've never been super into tuning, all this kind of stuff like that. He's just opening up my mind to all this stuff as well as Ben with his experience. And I've just kind of the bare essentials guy, kind of always have been. Just I got the bow. I mean, I got good bow. I got all the stuff that I feel confident in. I just don't tinker around a whole lot and try new things and see what works better for me. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into, trying new things and maybe try the iron will, and who knows.
We'll have you shooting back tension, fixed blades with the sling and everything else.
I don't know about that back tension stuff.
Dude, it's
you
funny.
Keep that.
I'm going to switch and releases to I have a Scott thumb release. Never really used it just because I've always used wrist strap, but I'm going to try to switch it up to break some of the target panic as bow only outdoors kind of mentioned, I believe is what it's called.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's a different side note. Target panic. And,
One of these days.
Yeah.
Close it out,
All right,
man.
that's pretty much all we got for tonight. If any of you guys want to add into this, go ahead and comment. We'll try to keep up with it here in the coming days. If you've got some experiences that you'd like to share, we'd love to hear them. If you're looking for some recommendations or you've got questions, feel free to ask us, and if we can't answer it, we'll point you to some people that can.
For sure. We'll leave links to, like I said, Ronald's page with articles, and also that site where you can rent heads to test. Cool.
Yeah, definitely got to check that out. I never heard of it before, so I'm kind of anxious to see what they got.
Yeah.
My last comment would be good sportsmen, guys. Like, let's not. We tried today. We called it a debate. It's kind of like a teaser to get people on or something. I don't know. Get people looking at it, but we didn't really try to debate and scream at each other or anything like that. Being a good sportsman is recognizing that, hey, there's two options, and if somebody chooses the other option, you don't need to ram down their throat why they're wrong and why they're stupid, or whatever. If they're confident in it and they're killing animals and stuff like that, sure, you might believe that there's a better option, but being good sportsmen is just, being educated to yourself, but being considerate of other people's options, just keep that in mind. We tried to keep that in mind when we're talking here. Tried not to call Jake too many names on live anyway, Ben and I usually talk a little bit about him, but
Oh, I'm sure.
no, just kidding. No, it's good to have different perspectives, and we set it up like this because I'm 100% fixed blade, Jake's pretty much 100% mechanical, and Ben has shot a good 50-50. But just be respective of, be good sportsmen, be good models, and respect other people's opinions, man.
At the end of the day, we're just out there to enjoy the outdoors and have some fun. But you owe it to the animal that we're after to try to put them down as cleanly and ethically as possible, and just have fun with it. Like with Matt, that's the geeking out, tweaking and experimenting. That's part of it that he really enjoys. So it's just part of the game, and enjoy it the best you can.
Yeah, almost as much as deer hunting, honestly, the actual hunting. The other thing, you can't buy yourself out of practice. You can't go buy the most expensive bow, the most expensive sight, the most expensive rest, release, strings, arrow, inserts, fletchings, broadhead, and then expect it to do it on its own. People kill deer with $300 bows and store-bought fletched arrows with factory inserts because they shoot the crap out of their bow and they know where their lethal range is, and they are ethical in the shots that they take, and they wait for that shot they know they can make. And like I said, they shoot the crap out of their bow, so they're money with their bow. Big expensive stuff would maybe only make them more lethal at longer distance. You can't go buy $5,000 worth of bow equipment and expect to pick it up in September and it's going to shoot itself. Like, you can't buy the human out of the bow, man.
Nope. Doesn't work that way as much as we'd like it to.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I got.
Yeah.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
All right. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody, for being on. See ya.